The encounter by the Sinos River. It was a full moon night in 1998, and the air felt heavy, as if the darkness itself had gained weight. My friend Tiago and I were sitting by the banks of the Sinos River in Campo Bom, Rio Grande do Sul. The water flowed calmly, reflecting the silvery glow of the moon, and the silence of the night was broken only by the distant chirping of crickets. We'd chosen that spot to talk, far from the city lights, enjoying the tranquility. But something about that night felt wrong. There was a chill that couldn't be explained, a void that seemed to swallow the sounds around us. As we chatted about mundane things, a sharp snap cut through the air, coming from the bushes to our left. I froze, my heart lurching. "Probably just some animal," I muttered, trying to convince myself. Tiago laughed, but his laughter died quickly when another sound came, a low, guttural growl that seemed to rumble from the chest of something far larger than a dog. We exchanged a glance, fear creeping up our spines. I grabbed my flashlight, its weak beam trembling in my hands, and pointed it toward the dense vegetation. Nothing, just shadows dancing among the leaves. But then, the wind stopped, everything stopped. Even the crickets fell silent, as if nature itself was holding its breath. And that's when I saw it. No, we saw it. A silhouette rose slowly from the bushes, tall, impossibly tall, maybe 7 feet or more. The moonlight outlined its form, and my stomach churned. It was a creature, but it wasn't human. It wasn't an animal either. It was something in between. Its body was covered in matted black fur, like darkness come to life. Its legs were muscular, bent in an unnatural way, like a wolf's, yet it stood upright like a man. And its head, God, its head. A long snout, teeth gleaming under the moonlight, and eyes that weren't eyes, but two burning embers, red as fire, that seemed to pierce my soul. "Lucas, what is that?" Tiago whispered, his voice shaking so much it barely came out. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My body was paralyzed, as if those eyes had pinned me in place. The creature stared at us, motionless, its heavy breathing echoing like low thunder. Each exhale formed a mist that dissolved in the cold air. My heart was pounding so loud I swear it could hear it. Then, it took a step forward. The leaves under its feet cracked, the sound like a gunshot in the silence. My instincts screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. Suddenly, a branch snapped behind us, on the other side of the river. The creature whipped its head around with an almost supernatural speed and let out a growl that made my bones vibrate. It was as if the gates of hell had opened. I seized the moment. "Tiago, run!" I shouted, my voice finally breaking through the panic. I yanked him by the arm, and we bolted, stumbling over the uneven ground, the sound of our footsteps echoing as the vegetation seemed to close in around us. I glanced back, just for a second, and there it was, still watching us, its fiery eyes locked on us. Then, with terrifying agility, it turned and dove into the thicket, the bushes shaking violently as it passed. But the worst wasn't over. As we ran, I heard something that haunted me for years, a howl. Not a normal wolf's howl, but something deeper, more primal, that seemed to tear the night apart. And for a moment I swear I heard heavy footsteps following us, branches breaking, as if the creature was toying with us, hunting us. We reached the main road, gasping, sweating despite the cold, and only then did we stop. I looked at Tiago, his face white as wax, his eyes wide with terror. "Did you see that?" he asked, almost begging me to say no. But I saw it, and even now when I close my eyes, I see those fiery eyes staring at me from the darkness. I've never gone back to those riverbanks. They say others have seen strange things there. Shadows that can't be explained, howls that don't belong to any known animal. I don't know what that thing was, but I know it wasn't of this world. And I know that on that night, something chose us and let us live. Appearance at my grandmother's farm. It was a stifling summer night in 1985, the kind where the air clings to your skin and the full moon hangs low, casting an eerie silver glow over the countryside. My grandmother's farm, tucked away in a quiet corner of rural Brazil, had always been a place of warmth and stories, tales of spirits, curses, and werewolves that she'd whisper to me, her eyes glinting with a mix of mischief and warning. As a 12-year-old, I'd roll my eyes at her stories, dismissing them as old folklore meant to scare kids into behaving. But that night, everything changed. I was staying over at the farm, sleeping on a cot in the small living room, when a strange noise jolted me awake. It wasn't the usual chorus of crickets or the occasional hoot of an owl. This was different, sharp, chaotic, like something was tearing through the chicken coop just beyond the house. The clucks of the hens turned to frantic shrieks, then silence. My grandfather, Huang, was already up, his weathered face tense as he grabbed his old shotgun from the wall. "Stay here, Mateus," he said, his voice low but firm. I didn't argue, but I couldn't just sit there. I crept to the porch, clutching a flashlight, its beam shaking in my trembling hands. The night was unnaturally still, the moonlight bathing the yard in a ghostly glow. The chicken coop, a rickety structure of wood and wire, was about 50 yards away, half hidden by a cluster of guava trees. I strained my eyes, trying to see what was happening, but all I could make out were shadows shifting in the darkness. Then I heard it. A low, guttural growl that seemed to rumble up from the earth itself, like a storm brewing deep in the ground. My heart pounded, and I gripped the flashlight tighter, its light barely cutting through the oppressive gloom. Minutes dragged on, each one heavier than the last. I was about to call out for my grandfather when I heard his footsteps crunching back toward the house. The door creaked open, and he stepped onto the porch, his face pale as ash, his eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen in him before. Huang was a tough man, a farmer who'd faced wild boars and storms without flinching, but now his hands shook as he set the shotgun down. "Mateus," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "there's something out there, something that ain't right." He told me what he saw, his words tumbling out in fragments, as if saying them aloud made it too real. In the coop, among the scattered feathers and broken bodies of the hens, stood a creature, massive, towering over the fence, its body covered in coarse matted fur that seemed to drink in the moonlight. It was hunched over, tearing into the chickens with claws like knives. But it wasn't just an animal. It stood on two legs, its form almost human, but twisted, wrong. Its head was that of a beast, with a long snout and jagged teeth that gleamed wetly in the dim light. Worst of all were its eyes, glowing red like twin coals burning in a furnace, locking onto him the moment he shouted to scare it off. He said he yelled, raising the shotgun, hoping the noise would drive it away. But the creature didn't flinch. It turned slowly, deliberately, its head tilting as if sizing him up. Then it let out a snarl, a sound so deep and menacing it felt like it clawed at the air itself. For a moment, Huang thought it would lunge at him, but instead, it leaped impossibly high, clearing the tall fence in a single bound and vanishing into the dense woods beyond. The trees shook as it crashed through them, and a bone-chilling howl split the night, echoing long after it was gone. I didn't see the creature myself, but the look on my grandfather's face was enough to make my blood run cold. His hands, still trembling, clutched at the rosary he always carried, and he muttered prayers under his breath as he barred the door. That night, we sat in silence, the house feeling smaller, the shadows darker. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside sent my heart racing. I kept the flashlight on until dawn, too afraid to close my eyes, convinced those burning red eyes were still out there, watching from the trees. From that day on, my family never spoke of that night, but we all changed. My grandfather stopped going out after dark, especially on full moons, and the chicken coop was left abandoned, its splintered remains a constant reminder. The older folks in the area whispered about similar sightings, about a beast that haunted the region for generations. I don't know what it was my grandfather saw, but I know it wasn't just an animal. Something unnatural stalked the farm that night, and I can still feel its presence in the silence of those moonlit nights, waiting, watching, just beyond the edge of the light, the shadow on High Hill. It was a sweltering night in 2010, the kind where the heat clings to you like a second skin, but the full moon overhead cast a cold, pale light that made everything feel wrong. I was walking home through a forested stretch near High Hill, just outside Seaside, South River Grande, Brazil. The road was a winding dirt path, flanked by dense trees and thick underbrush, the kind of place where the world feels like it's holding its breath. I'd made that walk dozens of times, but that night, something was off. The air was too still, the usual hum of insects replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed against my ears. My name's Gabriel Smith, and I was 23 then, cocky enough to think nothing could shake me. I was coming back from a friend's house, my phone's battery low, but enough to use its weak flashlight to guide my steps. The moonlight helped, painting the path in silver, but it also made the shadows deeper, more alive. I couldn't shake this nagging chill, like someone was watching me, though the heat should have had me sweating through my shirt. I told myself it was just my imagination, the late hour playing tricks on my mind. Then I heard it, a low, guttural growl rolling out from the bushes to my right. My heart skipped. "Just a stray dog," I muttered, trying to steady my breathing. I fumbled with my phone, the flashlight beam jittery as I aimed it at the undergrowth. The light caught something, movement, quick and deliberate. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. There, crouched among the ferns, was a figure. At first, I thought it was a man, maybe a hunter or some creep lurking in the woods. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw it wasn't human. Not entirely. It was humanoid, sure, but covered in coarse, dark fur that seemed to swallow the light. Its ears were pointed, twitching slightly, like a predator, listening for prey. And its eyes, gauze eyes. They glowed, not with the reflective glint of an animal, but with a fiery, amber-red light, like embers in a dying fire, locked right on me. I couldn't move. My legs felt like they were rooted to the ground, my phone trembling in my grip. The creature shifted, rising slowly from its crouch, and my stomach dropped. It was tall, easily over 6 feet, maybe closer to 7. Its frame lean but muscular, like a wolf, stretched into the shape of a man. Its head tilted, the snout long and sharp, teeth glinting as it parted its jaws slightly, letting out another growl, deeper this time, vibrating through the air like a warning. The moonlight caught its fur, giving it an almost spectral glow, and for a moment I thought I saw its claws flex, long and curved, glinting like knives. I don't know how long we stood there, staring at each other, but it felt like an eternity. My mind screamed to run, but my body wouldn't listen, pinned by those burning eyes. Then, from somewhere deeper in the forest, a twig snapped, sharp, like a gunshot in the silence. The creature's head whipped toward the sound, its ears twitching, and I seized my chance. I turned and ran, my feet pounding the dirt, branches snagging at my clothes as I tore through the path. My phone slipped from my hand, the flashlight beam spinning wildly before it hit the ground, plunging me into near darkness. I didn't stop to pick it up. I couldn't. Behind me, I heard it. A heavy thud, then another, like something massive was moving through the trees, keeping pace. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I didn't dare look back. The forest seemed to close in, the shadows twisting into shapes that didn't make sense, as if the woods themselves were alive and hunting me. A low, bone-chilling howl erupted, so loud it felt like it shook the ground beneath me. It wasn't just a sound, it was a presence, something ancient and hungry that made every hair on my body stand on end. I swear I felt hot breath on the back of my neck, though nothing touched me. The path finally opened to the main road, and I stumbled onto the pavement, gasping, my heart hammering so hard I thought it'd burst. When I finally dared to glance back, the forest was still, the moonlight revealing nothing but trees. But I knew it was there, just out of sight, watching. I ran the rest of the way home, locking the door behind me, my hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. The next day, I heard whispers from neighbors. Others had seen something in those woods, a shadowy figure with glowing eyes. Some even claimed to have blurry photos, though I never saw them. I never went back to that path, especially not at night. Even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that those eyes are still out there, waiting in the dark, just beyond the edge of High Hill, watching for me to step back into its domain.